and sell. Do not photocopy a prescription. If your client gives you a photocopy of a prescription, give it back, or shred it, shred it. Do not put copies of prescriptions in the client files.
It's a third-degree felony.
It's illegal. We didn't know that. We used to train people, best practice was to take a copy of the prescription. Do not photocopy prescriptions.
We don't want them.
What about the
Right.
copy of the pharmacy sales?
The little thing the pharmacy sends is fine,
Okay.
because that, and a lot of offices use those as the receipts. The little thing you get back from the pharmacy that
Well, I
says
need
how much
that
it
to
is.
put all the specifics of the prescription.
Yeah, but,
But they won't find it, right?
but the actual copy of a prescription written by a doctor, because your client leaves, I heard somebody yesterday, somebody at the home office, was calling their doctor and saying, you know those 3 prescriptions you gave me last week when I was in? I've lost them, can you rewrite them for me? And the doctor's like, sure, I guess, I don't know, I wasn't hearing what his target was. So your client can say, you know, I lost my prescription, so can you just give me a copy of the copy I gave you and then I'm gonna go get it? And maybe your client's going to 3 different pharmacies to get their prescription. We don't want to in any way to be contributing to fraudulent medication practices,
So is this any prescription?
any prescriptions.
So.
Except,
Oh,
Not just
pharmacies won't
medication.
take those,
Well, I have a client that needs hand controls and their doctor wrote a prescription for them.
that's different.
Can we put that
This is
in the
medications.
file?
Mhm.
So just medication.
Because I have one in one of my files that said, client needs prosthetic below the knee limb replacement.
That has to be in the file.
And that has to be in the file. That's a different type of prescription. These are specific, we're talking about medications. And so don't put copies of prescriptions, medication prescriptions in the client files, please.
So I'm curious, I know that was the practice,
Mm-hmm.
and I know it's no longer the practice, but what about all the copies of the prescriptions in the
Are in
files?
there.
They're still there.
Yeah,
I've
seen them.
Don't worry about them, because they're going to be far enough back. Because if anyone ever asks about it, we'd say, yeah, we were operating under wrong information. Once we found out, we changed it.
Is it okay to remove that, like, if I'm reviewing a file for closure, can I take it out and shred it? Or do you want it left in there?
I would say just leave it in there, because there's going to be a narrative saying that we put a copy of it in there.
Not necessarily.
Okay, well, there should be. Okay.
Why?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, if it was our practice, and that's how it was, we
But
would
some,
do a narrative.
but somewhere in my narrative is going to say the client contacted me and needed a refill of their medications, or there's going to be some documentation in the file saying why I have a copy of that prescription in there.
I don't agree.
Well,
There might be an R11 saying that they called, it's time for their number 2 of number 3 that is authorized. But if it was our practice to keep a copy of the prescription in the file, typically it was attached to the authorization.
Right.
And I would have not thought the need to put a separate R11 in.
no, not a
Let's
separate
just
11.
leave the files as they are and we'll change practices
Yeah.
going forward. I don't want to go and worry about
Don't need to.
shredding stuff that maybe we need to keep for later or something like that. Let's just not worry about it.
Okay,
Just going forward.
any questions on restoration services? That's our biggest change is don't keep copies of prescriptions. Because it's a what, 3rd-degree felony?
Third-degree felony.
Yeah, you'd be surprised. I have had clients get prescriptions filled on photocopy prescriptions. Oh yeah, I have worked with clients, keep in mind, my population was like half offenders. I have had clients who get prescriptions and do things with their medications that I know there's no way you can do. Somehow they've done it, so.
Most pharmacies have that blue light now where they have
Right.
super dash
Yeah.
I didn't know they
shows
could
through.
do
I
that.
didn't know they could get away with that.
Depends on if you know the pharmacist and your friends and, anyway, okay.
How much you slipping?
Yeah. Under the paper.
Moving right along, let's talk a little bit about our employability assessment. The employability assessment, we authorized the $500 for the employability assessment.
Nothing else at that
Nothing
time.
else at this time, just the $500 for the employability
And
assessment.
when I say nothing else, I mean no milestones. because
Okay.
you don't know that yet. The idea of having an employability assessment is you're seeing, is this person employable and how much, what degree of intervention do they need? So you don't want any milestones, just the assessment.
So just the assessment fee, and you can do that while they're in status 10, because again, it's an assessment to determine their rehabilitation needs.
If you put them into a plan, you put it under the assessment
Category.
FAE template.
Then, once you get that back, you're negotiating what services and the appropriate milestones. Keep in mind, with the milestones, if you've got a client that's already employed and they just need the job coaching, you can negotiate, okay, we're not gonna pay the placement milestone, we're not gonna pay this milestone over here, we're just gonna pay these milestones over here. We don't necessarily go, it's not a, you start at 1 and go through 5. There is some negotiation with that. Keep it fair though, for all of us, for your providers as well, because we need to work with our providers. Also, if you're working with somebody that's going to be a little more challenging, make sure that you're sharing that information with your CRPs. There have been situations where the assessment has been started and it's not completed due to the client issues. Client never shows up again, whatever it might be. They'll submit their full written report of everything they've completed, their efforts to contact the person, and we will pay the $500 for it. Okay?
If you're doing, and I just wanna say this really quickly because I think it's something that's a big deal. If you're doing your pre-employability assessment contact with the SJBT provider, you can talk to them about what you know about the client and kind of what you foresee the outcome of the assessment being. Because if you aren't having that communication and telling them what you know, number one, their assessment that things that you already know, right? And then the other thing is you're going to come back with every single one of them getting a milestone, and maybe they don't all need the milestone. So if you have in your mind, this person's pretty quick, I think they can learn a job, but they don't know how to go out and search for a job, and that's where they need help, I would say that up front to the person who's doing the assessment. And then if they find something that you weren't aware of that means that they should go milestone, you can do that, but unless we communicate with them and tell them kind of what we're thinking, they pretty much just recommend the milestone. And we were having that particular issue with Valley, because Valley didn't know what we wanted, and so they were just giving the client, here's your menu, and they would put the menu, the entire menu, in the assessment that they give us back, so hence the client was getting everything, CCEP, everything. But if we can communicate up front, we can kind of let them know what we foresee, and they can kind of do their assessment based off of that.
Milestone authorizations. Checked with Kyle yesterday. You can authorize the $500 job development fee and all the milestones if you wanted to, or you can authorize for the milestones separately, depending on the situation. You might say, okay, I'm gonna authorize for the $500 job development fee and then the placement and the job coaching one. But I'm not gonna authorize for the less than 20% or the closure one, or the 90 days, until they've actually been placed. Because I'm only gonna authorize for, $2,500 or $3,500 of my budget here, and then once we get to this point, then I'm gonna do a separate authorization for that. Some of the CRPs we worked with liked them broken up that way, it was easier for them on their billing end, others wanted all the milestones up front. Kyle says he doesn't care how you do it, as long as we're getting what we needed every step along the way.
Don't fight with SJBT providers
It's
about
not
this. It's just not worth it. There's so many other things that we can talk to them about. If they want 1, 2, and 3 on an authorization, go 1, 2, and 3 on an authorization.
Most of them are very agreeable to not putting 4 and the high quality indicators on that first authorization.